Today we are going to Anddalsglupens nature reserve. It's kind of like a vernal, ephemeral pond where the only water comes from the surrounding ground and from rainwater. Hello Samuel.
Hello.
What do you want to find today?
I mean, it's spring and sunny and dry, but I would like to find some cool polypores and corticoids on the dead wood.
This man only wants polypores, okay?
Yes.
Maybe some parasites on lichens.
Nice.
And some bryophytes.
Yes.
Bryophytes and bumblebees.
The bark beetle Topographic has heavily attacked the spruces around here, so the road to the reserve is completely blocked. There is no way you can drive up there anymore. Nice clear cut here behind the reserve sign. Prime Swedish nature conservation. So here's the pond. The water levels are quite low. I believe where I'm standing right now was ice during the winter a few years ago. This land next to the water is underwater when there is a high spring flow. So the interesting biological values around this pond are mainly on the deciduous trees, such as alder and aspen. There are many lichen parasites which have been seen here. Really old oak. It's completely hollow inside. Olle found some Schistidium species on this temporarily flooded rock. Capsules in this genus open like a flower. So here we have a capsule of Schistidium
Apocarpum sensu stricto.
Okay.
It's a large complex of species. We have about 40 of them nowadays. This is the capsule. You see it from above. The interior of the capsule is the dark in the middle.
Yeah.
There are all the spores.
So the brown stuff inside, that is spores?
That are spores.
Yeah.
They're very, very small.
Mm.
But around this round circle you have teeth.
Teeth.
Peristome teeth.
Yeah.
And there are 16 of them. Point in dry conditions now it's spreading out very much like a flower.
Yeah, it's called flower mosses in Sweden. And what is the purpose of these teeth at the end of the capsule?
When the capsule gets wet, the teeth crumbles inwards, and the teeth spores attach to them when they are wet. And when the capsule gets dry, the peristome spreads out again, and the spores are stuck on the peristome and easily get blown away by the wind.
Okay, so it's a spore dispersal function basically.
Yeah.
Teeth on this one are swirled. And there's some red thing. What is that? You see that? There's some red ball there.
I think that's the lid.
Oh, so that
landed inside the capsule.
Okay.
Lid from another capsule, perhaps. And the leaves of Schistidium are triangular, and most of the species have a white tip of the
white hair tips.
White hair tip. Yes. And
for this
Schistidium apocarpum sensu stricto has a very short one, but distinct in the loop, at least.
There's a jumping spider on the bark of this aspen. On this large boulder behind Samuel and Henrik, there is a moss called Excursion crispa.
They shine so nicely in the sun. A large plerocarpus moss covering a boulder with something calcareous around. Maybe not the boulder itself, but trees growing above it has some influence on the bryophyte flora on the boulder. And the relative, Necra complanata, a smaller one.
Okay, Necra complanata.
Nowadays it's called Alleniella.
So this species has wrinkled leaves in comparison with its relative Alenella complanata, which has flat or non-wrinkled leaves. There's a bunch of dead elms here, and on this thin decorticated elm branch there is a pretty rare and red-listed fungus called Hypoxylon vogesiacum, these small cushions. I think it's red-listed as vulnerable in Sweden, and it's of course red-listed because of the Dutch elm disease killing the elms. On this broken elm log we have more and very large specimens. It's a bit hard to see here, but the color of these cushions is pretty dark grayish purple, which is characteristic for this species.
Hypoxylon vogesiacum is also red-listed globally as near threatened because it has declined due to the ash dieback and Dutch elm disease killing its substrate. It also has a rather limited global distribution, with its main distribution in Sweden and Norway.
Here's an elm which has not completely died yet. And on this elm we have another species in the genus Hymenocete. This is Hymenocete ulmicula because it grows on elm. And if I remember correctly, it's red-listed as endangered in Sweden. A lot smaller ears than its relative rubiginosum, which grows on oak.
Hymenocete ulmicula was described as recently as 2005 and has, similarly to Hypoxylon vogesiacum, a pretty limited global distribution, with the most findings in Sweden and Norway. It is not yet globally red-listed, but it is currently under assessment.
On this aspen there is a moss called Neckera pennata, which is very similar to the one we saw earlier with the roughened or wavy leaves. Theo will now show, yes, he will moisten the moss. Here it is. It even has capsules. I'm not sure I've seen that before. Maybe I haven't, I have forgotten. But they are red, right?
Yes.
Look really nice. So Samuel found Aporpium canescens here under this aspen log.
Yes, so we're in a spot here with a shit ton of dead populus trees, and started climbing around. We found some other Ceriporiopsis species, but here we found something a little bit more rare. Here there's Aporpium canescens, and
There it is.
this looks like a polypore, but it is a jelly fungi who tricks us and looks like a polypore instead. It has a very, very small pores. As fresh, it's kind of whitish, but you can also see like in the edges and around the pores that there's some rustic, more brown colors. This species is quite rare. I've only found it a handful of times, and usually in localities with lots of dead wood, in spots with high humidity and basically high quality localities. So this is a very nice find.
And it usually occurs on deciduous wood, right? I found it on elm a couple of times, I think.
Exactly. Elm, birch trees, populus trees, but there's actually some records on spruce as well.
Okay.
All right, we have found a quite pretty pink fungi here on a populus trunk. Up here we have Cortesium ericksoni, and as you can see, it's very pale pinkish in color. You can see some leftovers of the spores here, and I can also demonstrate why it has the Swedish name called stoftskinn. It's more like...
The hymenium is very powdery, and if you... Well, this was not here. Here we have some powder.
Exactly. Cortesium ericksoni you can find on mainly populus trees, but also other deciduous trees like birch, for example, betula. And it's it's quite trivial, and it's the species you can mistake it for is the other one in the Cortesium family, or the genus. I think it's called Cortesium
Rosium. Yeah.
Yes, here we have it. Quite common cortesioid with the characteristic pink or grey pink maybe color.
While editing this, I found a phylogenetic study from 2021 that suggests that Cortesium rosium and ericksoni are actually the same species.
These elm trunks are completely covered in a small pincushion lichen called Sclerophora pallida. It's red listed as vulnerable. Here they are, very, very small. Someone has cut a spruce here, and on it we have Fomitopsis cerealis. It's a polypore that is very common, one of the characteristic species on spruce. And on this log it has two very different ways of growing the fruit bodies, that is. Here they have small caps. The white stuff is the pore layer and the brown on top is the small caps. And on the underside here it's completely resupinate, is what you call it, when it grows completely attached to the substrate. No caps, very flat. We are revisiting a known locality of Urnula craterium here. We found it. It grows here on a pretty thick branch on the forest floor. Urnula craterium, red listed as vulnerable in Sweden. It was endangered in the last red list from 2020, but it has been re-evaluated in the latest red list from 2025 to vulnerable. We switched localities to Lindsjön, another nature reserve. And this is a mixed coniferous forest, a pretty calcareous one, so there's a lot of mycorrhizal fungi here during autumn. Look at these capsules. They have opened to like a star shape, or like four teeth at the top. So these are capsules from the same species, but also fresh ones. So the black balls are fresh capsules, and I think you can see also those red ones with 4 teeth among them. And Henrik, what is the Latin name for this species?
Ptylidium pulcherrimum.
Ptylidium pulcherrimum. Pulcherrimum, okay. Here's the actual liverwort. These brown yellow shoots, and they are very finely branched, but it's pretty hard to see at this magnification. On a birch log there is Jackrogacella multiformis. These little cushions. This species grows on various deciduous trees, usually on birch and alder, and prunus as well. But yeah, many different trees. And it has this blackish brown color. I cut a bit of the top from this cushion, and the shiny stuff here is the spore mass. There's a small mire here, and look at these massive cushions of Polytrichum commune. It's the largest species in the genus. Theo, show us how long the shoots can become. Can you hold it up against your shirt, maybe?
Yeah.
And how long is this? That's like three decimeters or something.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah.